Today we are going to take a real journey. We are going to explore the mystery of the blue string. There is an unbelievable idea I'd like to share with you today. We're going to go basically to the highest heavens and back to the bottom of the earth. Sounds like one of these adventure movies, and hopefully by the time we're done we will have a new appreciation for this simple, tiny blue string that we are meant to find on our tzitzit. To understand what this blue string is about, we have to take a look at a piece of Talmud in the tractate Menachot. Over there, they ask, what's so special about this blue string? And they discuss it. It's a teaching from Rabbi Meir, the great Rabbi Meir. And it goes like this. Ma nishtana tchelet mikol minei tziv'onim. What is so unique about this special turquoise blue string, this color, that it was chosen to be the symbol and the color that we want to highlight the tzitzit with, this special blue string? Why blue? Why not another color? That's what essentially they're asking. Why blue? And so the answer given is that because this blue is similar to the ocean, meaning when you look at the ocean, you see a nice blue ocean. So since the tchelet is domeh leyam, similar to the blue of the ocean, and the blue of the ocean is similar to the rakia, to the sky, the heaven. And the rakia, the sky that we see blue, is similar to the kisei hakavod, God's throne of glory. It's brought in different prophecies and verses that the throne of glory has some type of idea that we would appreciate, that it's blue sapphire, and and the color blue. So the color blue is attributed to God's throne of glory. And so there we go. We have the pattern of where we get to the source of the blue, and again, these series of locations that lead us to our techelet. I look at the blue string, and this blue string is supposed to remind me of the ocean, right? So I have the blue of my string, and I look to the ocean, which is also blue, and I say, okay, I have my blue string, and the ocean is blue. And then I look at the blue ocean, and I look up and see the blue sky. Beautiful. And then I think, or I'm supposed to understand, that now that I see this blue sky is only a reflection of, or symbolizing, the blue of the throne of glory in heaven, God's heavenly throne of glory in some very high spiritual world. Okay, so this is the process of the blue string, and this is why the blue string was chosen, for that uniqueness, that I can make these connections. Okay, that's the idea. Now the question we're going to ask right now is, I think, almost an obvious type of question, but maybe it takes some thought. So let's start exploring. My first question would be like this. If I am looking at my blue string, so perhaps I can make my trip shorter. Why do I have to go to so many locations to get to this blue throne of glory? Why can't I just look at my blue string, and then if I've learned or have been taught, because you have to have been taught this, you can't know that the throne of glory is blue without being taught it. So if I've already learned that the throne of glory is blue, so let me look at my blue string, and then let me say to myself that this blue string is the same color as God's divine throne of glory in some heaven up there, which is also blue. And I've saved myself a bunch of side trips, right? That's one way to look at it. Okay, so what's the point? I need to see a physical blue that's on my blue string. I need to know that the sky, the heaven is blue, the throne of glory in heaven is blue. So I have my physical example, and I can think about in my thought, and I can imagine the blue of a divine throne, which is not physical, but the concept of a blue divine throne, and I'm done. Why am I being sent to the ocean to go to the sky to then go to the blue throne? Okay, so we'll try this another way. Maybe it's just too many stops. Maybe it's important for me to at least maybe make one stop. So if I look at my blue string, maybe I should look straight up at the sky and see the blue sky and say, oh, this blue is like that blue, because the blue sky is very, very impressive. And now that I'm looking at the sky, I'm ready to think about what's beyond the sky. And then I'm ready to think about the God's throne of glory, which also is blue. So maybe I need to go to the blue sky because it expands my mind and my idea of going beyond and what's beyond the sky, and that's God's throne of glory. So I need the sky. So we're going to make it this time, it's a 3-step instead of a 2-step. It's, I look at my blue string, I look at the sky, and that helps me kind of get to a readiness to think about the blue throne of glory. But I've cut out the ocean. Okay? That's the second option. So we have two options. Either blue string, blue throne of glory, or blue string, blue sky, blue throne of glory. Those are my two options right now. But yet, we see clearly that Rabbi Meir wants us to go to the ocean first. I mean, I love going to the beach, take a nice swim. The funny thing, though, is when you do go to the beach and you take a nice swim, what do you realize when you go into that wonderful blue ocean?
That it's not blue?
That it's not blue. Exactly. That it's not blue. You start playing with the water, you could look at the water. It's not blue at all. It's clear. So I'm going to an ocean that appears to be blue, but isn't really blue. That's what they're sending me to. They're sending me to, Rabbi Meir is saying, go look at the ocean that appears to be blue, because it reflects the color of the sky, which is blue, which is ultimately a reflection of God's throne of glory, which is blue. And so the question now becomes, this extra step of going to the ocean what's it doing? Why is it there? Why does it need to be there? That's the question. Why? Why does it need to be there? Seems like once I can figure out why I need to go to the ocean, then I also can understand why I need to have the sky in my scenario. Because it's really showing me about this reflection. I need to know for some reason, which we'll get to in more detail, that the ocean is reflecting the light of the color of the sky. So now I've taken my first option, which is to go straight from my blue strings to the throne of glory, and I've put that aside. And now I understand that I need to go to the sky, but in addition, beyond just going to the sky to get to the throne, I have to first go to the ocean, which I'm seeing a reflection of the blue of the sky in the ocean. Then I'm ready to go to the throne of glory. And now let's get a little bit deeper and appreciate what's going on. The next step in this journey is going to be looking at one of the very well-known books on the mitzvahs, on the God's commandments, called the Sefer HaChinuch, written by one of the early Rishonim, a great, great, great sage. The rabbis tell us that the mitzvah of the fringes, of having these fringes on the corners of our garment, is a mitzvah so important and so powerful that it is compared to all of the mitzvahs of the Torah. All of the divine commandments. There are 613 commandments, and the mitzvah of tzitzit has a connection to all 613 mitzvot. Very powerful idea. First of all, the Torah tells us that I should look at my tzitzit and I should remember all of the commandments. Let me just read the first verse for you. U'item oto, and you will see the tzitzit. Uzchartem et kol mitzvot Hashem, and you will remember all of the mitzvot of God. And so we see this is the first connection. So the importance of the mitzvah of tzitzit, and that it connects to all of the mitzvot, which is shakul keneged kol mitzvot, is that God says I should look at my tzitzit and think of all of his mitzvot. That's the first step. Beyond that, the rabbis show us in a beautiful way, he mentions it here as well, that if I take the word tzitzit, it's tzadi, yud, tav. Tzadik is 90, yud is 10, that's 100. Again, tzadik and yud is another 100. That's 200. Tav is 400, that's 600. So the total numerical value of the word tzitzit is 600. You take the strings, so there are 8 strings and 5 knots. And that equals 8 and 5 is 13. So there we have 600 in the word tzitzit, and in the knots that I make, another 13, that's 613. So the tzitzit themselves represent this idea of 613 mitzvot. Those are the two ways we connect the tzitzit to all of the mitzvot, which tells us how important and fundamental this mitzvah is. It kind of represents a foundation of all of divine service, of every mitzvah that we'll ever do. The entire connection we have between us and God is somehow connected to this mystical garment called tzitzit and this wonderful blue string. Okay, so let's continue. Now he says something very interesting, and it's beautiful to see a very early sage express himself and, so to speak, kind of like talk from the heart, almost literally. And here's what he adds to his idea. He says, at the end of that, he says like this. He says, Od omer li libi. My heart is telling me something else, something more. Imagine you have a holy person that spent his entire life learning Torah. What kind of person we're speaking about? And here he's saying that I have a hunch, but again, we have to not use the word hunch like the way we use it. We're talking about a person whose entire life was Torah, an expert of Torah. is blood, in his blood, Torah. And he's saying, with all my experience, with all my learning, my heart is calling out to me and telling me there's something here going on that I can't say as a fact. And I don't have really a proof. I didn't learn it from somebody. It wasn't something I received from an angel. It's something that my heart is telling me that has something to do with this mitzvah of tzitzit and these strings. And here it is. Here's what he tells us. He says, again, my heart is telling me like this. שיש בו רמז וזיכרון שגופו של אדם ונפשו הכל להשם ברוך הוא. It says, my feeling is this. Again, my holy feeling. That there's something about these strings, these white strings and blue strings that are on my tzitzit that point to the body and soul. My body and soul, which is really who and what I am in every sense. My being. Something about these strings telling me something about who I am, what I am. What body and soul in totality. This is the message in the tzitzit. Very powerful idea. And what's the point? The point is that my body and soul must be for one thing and one thing only. Hashem. What have I been created for? Who created me and why? What am I living for? What am I alive for? What am I doing with my life? Where am I going? And when I think about that, am my body and soul going somewhere? Is my body going one way and my soul going another way? Is my body and soul in this together? Are they partners in life or partners in crime? What's going on over here? That's what he's pointing at. Okay? And he continues to prove his points. Interestingly, again, he says like this. The body essentially comes from earth. The verses prove that. The Torah says, God says that God took the earth and from the earth formed man. And then he blew the breath of life into him, his body. The breath of life, the breath from Hashem is very deep. The soul of man is a part of God that he blows into man and he becomes a living being. So we have two kind of opposite, elements here. We have the earth that we walk on. We have the earth, which is where my body comes from. But my soul comes from the highest places you can imagine, from Hashem himself that blows the breath of life into Adam, which represents everybody. And my soul comes from a very beautiful, wonderful place above. In fact, we're taught in Kabbalah that the essence of the soul is connected with Hashem in an unbelievable way. To the point where the Kabbalists tell us, based on a verse from Job, that the soul is a part of Hashem, a part of God. Okay? Deep idea. Hopefully one other time we'll get into it more. But this is the soul and the body that we're talking about over here. He wants to explain, where does the body come from? The body comes from earth. And where does earth come from? He asks this question and answers based on Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer, very interesting book of Midrash from the great Rabbi Eliezer, one of the greatest sages of all time. Utter genius, especially a very beautiful story about his life. You should look into it. Rabbi Eliezer the Great, his contemporaries called him the Great. That's how great he was. Unbelievable. And in his teachings, he mentions a concept. We have to hopefully appreciate it and understand it. He says that the earth originates from snow. Somehow, in whatever process he means, whether it's a scientific or Kabbalistic or both, somehow the earth is developed from snow and becomes earth. And I'll read the words inside so we know we're getting it exactly correct. So
that would be the earth comes from water. Because snow is...
A very good point, which is going to be very connected to what we're going to talk about. So he says like this. He says the earth was created from snow, which is white. And so now we understand, he wants to say that the white strings correspond to the body. And he proves it from a place, from the source, Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer, that says like this, Haaretz mehechan nivret. Where was the earth created from? He says, Misheleg, shetachat kisei hakavod. Unbelievable, we're back to God's throne of glory. The earth was created from snow that was taken from God's throne of glory. Interesting. We have in the midst of tzitzit a series of blue that leads us up to this blue throne. But at the same time, we have snow that's connected to this throne of glory, which is where the earth comes from, and snow is white. And so we have white snow and a blue throne, and it all comes from the same place, and we're digging, we're getting closer, we're getting deeper. So that's where we get white from. He then says further that the sages talk about the beginning of the formation of a human body in the womb as an embryo starts off in strands, in like chutim, in strings. And that develops and develops. And so he says we see that the body's beginning is from strings. And so here too, the strings, the white strings are a hint to the body in two ways, that they're white and that they're strings. And that's how the body is formed, from earth, which comes from white snow, and from like strings that kind of continue to develop and develop into the human body. Okay, so this is part one. We finished with the body. The body is white strings now, according to this. And so that's what the white strings mean. They mean and represent my body. That comes from earth. The next step, he says, is the soul. The soul, we understand that the soul was breathed into us by God himself, which comes from the Elyonim, from above, from somewhere very high above. Now that soul points us to something beyond this physical world, and that's talking about now the Elyonim, beautiful realm of Elyonim. And he brings from the rabbis, there's a beautiful teaching that says that the soul, there are two different lashonot. He brings a language that talks about the souls of the righteous, and that they're kind of like hidden under the throne of glory. There's another lashon, another version of this idea that's spoken about a lot and taught a lot today, that says that the souls of Israel are carved out from under God's throne of glory. Either way, we are connecting now our soul to the same throne of glory that ultimately earth comes from, and that is the soul. The soul is carved out from under God's throne of glory, which again, the throne is blue, and so now we have the soul, which is really heavenly, which we can connect with blue, because it comes from the higher realms, which the sky is blue and the heavens are blue and this throne of glory is blue. And so we have a blue string is the soul, and we have the white strings, which are the body, which also, ironically, according to the source, come from the same source of throne of glory. But you have blue from the throne of glory and white from the throne of glory. Okay? Very nice. So now let's try to get even a little bit deeper. And the main point is what we want to share with you today is now this idea, which is something with Hashem's help, I've worked on a bit. And again, an idea like this is really not coming as a result of work, but really a blessing possibly from Hashem to be able to kind of discover and connect and put all of these ideas together. My original thought was, why is Rabbi Meir sending me to the ocean? Why can't I just, where I am standing on earth, look up, either straight, like I said, either straight to the throne of glory or to the sky and then to the throne of glory? Why can't I do it from where I'm standing? Why is he sending me to an ocean? We are earth creatures. We live on earth. More than that, our body is earth. We are walking pieces of earth. We are earth, right? So why don't I just look from where I am on earth, my blue string, and just look straight up at the throne of glory or the sky? And so I think the fascinating point here is this. Where I'm standing doesn't reflect anything. I'm standing in a position that doesn't reflect anything. Earth does not reflect the light of the sky. You can't find the earth reflect blue because it's not transparent. The earth is opaque and does not, reflect any of the blue of the sky. So why does Rabbi Meir want me to go to an ocean that reflects the blue of the sky instead of just, forget about all that reflection and just go straight to the blue of the throne? So you see, there's something over here about reflecting. It's important for me to understand tzitzit and this blue and the relationship between body and soul, to first go to an ocean that I don't live on. I'm not a creature of the ocean, that's for fish. But to go to that ocean and look at the relationship between the ocean water and the sky, and how the ocean water looks so blue, like it's as if it's blue because it reflects the blue of the sky, because there's something special. I can't just stand on earth that doesn't reflect, that's not see-through, and just do all this blue stuff. It has to be through the ocean, which is telling me something. And what is it telling me? What is it telling me? That it is clear and available to absorb the blue of the sky. What is that message? And what I think that message is, and what's been driving this whole idea, for me at least, is this. Once upon a time, we're going to go way, way back. I think we're going to go as far back as we can, almost. And that is to the first day of creation. before Adam before Adam sinned with the tree of knowledge of good and evil, before that moment, Adam existed in a very unique, very high spiritual level. The nature of Adam, his soul and body, were different. The nature of the world was different. So let's take a look at what the rabbis tell us about Adam before the first sin, and what they tell us about Adam and the world, of course, and Eve, after the first sin. We have to appreciate what was, what changed, and what is now to appreciate why I have to go to the ocean and see the special reflective relationship of the sky and the blue of the sky and the blue of the ocean. So let's do that now. So a great rabbi, Rabbi Yoshua Horowitz, known as the Shalah, the Shnei Luchot HaBrit, after his book called the Two Tablets of the Covenant, that's the name of his book. He says that before the first sin, based on Kabbalah, of course, he's not the source, but based on Kabbalah, he says that body and soul were friends, were beloveds, were partners in life, not partners in crime. They had a unity, and they both reflected light. We know from Chazal that we look at our nails when we do Havdalah, we look at our fingernails, because that's supposed to remind me of Adam's body before the sin, which they say was similar to these nails. Now, they're not telling us that an idea for a new superhero called Nail Man. That's not what they mean. They mean that the nail is transparent, and the color I can see through my nail is the color of my skin. And that was Adam's body before the sin. His body was clear, like the ocean water. His body reflected the light of the soul within. And in the language of the Shla, it was like the great light and the smaller light. The body was a light. The body shined light. The soul and body worked in partnership to shine God's light. Two vessels put together in a partnership to reveal the light of truth and the light of God. That's what body and soul was before the sin. And then there was this Nachash that comes in, the snake, the serpent, and twists things around and gets man turning against himself, turning against Hashem, and creating unfortunate mess that is the result after it. So what's the difference between man before the sin and after the sin? After the sin, he explains that man became, the relationship between body and soul went from being beloveds, lovers, partners, one, united, to being enemies, fighting, opposites. One spiritual, one physical, one wanting to connect with Hashem, and one wanting to connect with being an animal. It went from the beautiful story of the oneness of Gan Eden, of the Garden of Eden, where we were one with ourselves, we were one within ourselves, one with Hashem. Unity, revelation, to darkness, concealment, separation, and content, fighting and strife from the beginning until now. That's the difference between before and after the sin. Okay, so now let's come back to right now. We look at the strings of the tzitzit. We see a blue string, we see a white string, and we say, wow, look at that. Earth, body and soul, heaven and earth, such opposites, such things that are so far apart from each other, but yet we put them together in the tzitzit. Because ultimately the point is to unite body and soul. Through what vehicle are we going to use? Through the 613 divine commandments, through the 613 mitzvot. That's the vehicle, 613 parts of a greater divine plan to bring back together body and soul to the way they were. And what are the 613 mitzvot? They are really 613 limbs, physical limbs of my body, because we have 365 sinews and 248 limbs, which equal 613. And we have 613 spiritual limbs and sinews of my soul. So my soul and body are also divided into 613 parts. And in fact, the Zohar says that God himself, the king in his spiritual manifestation within creation, also has 613 limbs and sinews of the king. I think the Zohar really mentions the 248 limbs, not the sinews, but it's the same idea. And so what's this all about, these tzitzit? These tzitzit, 613, this magical number, and this blue and white relationship, it's all about the unity between body and soul, heaven and earth, and God's creations with himself, the unity between the world and Hashem, world and God, us and God. That's what it's all about. And that's what the tzitzit are telling us. Look at the blue and white and take that journey to the ocean to tell us what was. Get to the sky, the throne of glory where my soul comes from, and realize the point is to take the two whites from that throne of glory and reunite them. I'm sorry, to take the blue and the white from the throne of glory and reunite them and become that which was meant to be from the beginning. We have to fix the world and ourselves. And in that completed state, we're going to have not only the blue fringe of the string, but it will all become blue because we'll all reflect. And the sages point to that the mitzvah of tzitzit are going to change in the future. And the goal is body and soul to reflect, work together as partners, and illuminate and shine this world with the light of Hashem. And the whole entire world will be also a vessel to shine God's true light. And the will of God will be clear and seen to all, by all. B'ezrat Hashem.